Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, in honor of Thanksgiving, I thought I would cover one of our reunion specials, A Day of Thanks on Walton's Mountain. This episode was done the year after the series ended, so in 1982, NBC brought back the cast of the Waltons to do 3 TV movies, including this special for Thanksgiving. The year is 1947. The war is over. All the boys are back home. In this case, Mama is in Arizona for her health. She's recuperating from tuberculosis, and Daddy has gone out there to be with her. Grandma is supposedly touring around, visiting various different cousins, and is currently in Buckingham County staying with cousins. And of course, Grandpa is no longer with us. Cindy, Ben's wife, is living at the house as well. Paul, who married Erin in one of our first reunion specials, he is living in the house. So he and Erin have taken over the grandparents' house. Jonesy and I got married in the second of the reunion specials. And it's not quite clear whether we're living at the house or not. We seem to be, so I'm not sure whose room we're in, possibly the parents' room. So some of these bedroom arrangements are just a little unexplained, unless they became a story point. But everyone's there. Elizabeth wants the rest of the family home for Thanksgiving, and she is worried that John Boy is still in New York, that Mom and Daddy aren't going to be there, and that some of the other members of the family, Erin and Paul, are talking about maybe going to be with his father. So Elizabeth is feeling the lack of family at Thanksgiving and how to her family is Thanksgiving. In this particular special, I loved how there were sort of storylines for everybody. Elizabeth wants everyone to be home for Thanksgiving. Jim Bob now has his garage open with Jodie Foster, but Jody he's not there at this point for some reason. And Jim Bob has an opportunity to buy all these spare parts. These 2 guys come along and say they've closed out a garage and they're trying to sell all these goods at a real bargain. Yancy Tucker happens to be there and tells Jim Bob that he should absolutely make this happen and that Yancy will become his partner. And so Jim Bob's trying to figure out how to make this happen. So he's got that going on. Paul and Erin are struggling because Paul is experiencing what Kurt experienced at one point of too many Waltons. And Paul is working with Ben in the lumber mill, and he's also living in the house, so he feels like he never has a chance to get away from the Waltons or be alone with Erin. So he's going through all of that, which is putting a lot of stress on Erin as well, who loves her family but loves her husband. So she's torn. All seems to be well with Ben and Cindy. They have 2 children. They have Ginny and they have Charlie. These 2 children that, raises the whole thing about in the other reunion specials later, where supposedly Ginny had drowned and Charlie just disappeared completely and went poof. And so what happened to the children? So all of those, at least in these reunions, we were close enough to the original series that the producers and the writers were all very consistent about what we did know about the family. John Boy is in New York and he has horrible writer's block. He's getting nowhere with his next novel, and he is working for a TV station or a radio station. He's supposed to be writing scripts, and he is completely blocked on getting scripts written. So he is struggling and doesn't know what to do. Jason owns the Dewdrop Inn, but he is feeling restless and unsettled, like he wants more from his life than just owning the Dewdrop and playing, popular music of the time. He's interested in going further with his music and doing more with composition. So he talks to Corabeth about the possibility of selling the Dewdrop Inn. The Godseys are feeling a little unsettled because Amy's away and she's at college and they feel like they're going to be alone at Thanksgiving. So they're looking at potentially going away for Thanksgiving. So again, a lot of unsettled things going on with members in the community and the family. A few points along the way with this episode. In a couple of cases, we see stock footage of New York because when they're going back to a scene in New York, they establish it with one of these pieces of stock footage of New York. Always a challenge for the editors to blend stock footage with the footage we're shooting and make it look sort of seamless. I think they did a pretty good job. Because it's a different city and a different feel, I think it makes it work. Now, John Boy has a girlfriend, Jane. Now, interesting that Jane is the name of Earl's wife in real life. Now, later on, when John Boy actually got married, I think perhaps because it wasn't the same actress and wasn't supposed to be the same person, they named the character that John Boy actually married as Janet. So close, Jane, Janet, but for whatever reason, they decided to not stick with Jane when he actually got married. We see this new girlfriend of John Boy's, and she seems like a lovely woman, and she encourages him in his work and in his need to figure out how he's going to unblock his writing. Around about this time, Jason shows up. Jason has gone to New York, first of all, to see John Boy, but also because he's meeting with a very prominent teacher who teaches composition and trying to see if there's any possibility that he could study with this renowned teacher. So along the way, he and John Boy have a really beautiful scene where they talk about home and how difficult and what home means to each of us. Because to John Boy, he's like, if I go home, it's not home, because to him, home is what he remembered it. And this really resonated with me, that we have images and feelings about our past and how we would like things to be, but we know that they're not that way anymore. So to John Boy, he talks about how home was Mom and Daddy both there. It was Grandpa and Grandma both there. It was all of his siblings being there and in each other's lives. And we can't go back in that sense. So I think when we try to recreate something that doesn't exist anymore, we're disappointed, as opposed to trying to find how to make what really is as enjoyable and as fulfilling as we can make that we really can only go forward. We can remember fondly the past, but John Boy has to find a way to bridge this situation for himself. And Jason is very helpful in that and talks John Boy into going home with him. At one point, Jonesy and Jason and then Ike are all watching Jim Bob try to put a rope around this turkey. Yancy has traded Isabella, his turkey, for an inner tube that he needs for a flat tire. And for whatever reason, Jim Bob is trying to rope this turkey and having a lot of trouble. Now, in this case, Jonesy has become a veterinarian, which is interesting because when he was introduced, he was a geologist. But I'm thinking that they decided to make him a veterinarian because what do you do with a geologist? What do they actually do, and how do you keep them on Walton's mountain? So in this case, him being a veterinarian means that there's reasons for him to be around and always something for him to do. He has sort of set up the barn at the Waltons as his little clinic. And so because he is around, Mary Ellen is studying to be a doctor. So she comes and goes as her classes are. Jonesy's spending a lot of time with John Curtis, who he calls Johnny, which is very sweet. John Curtis, has an imaginary friend. He keeps running off and disappearing into the woods to talk to this imaginary friend. At one point, he takes Ginny with him, who is just too cute, and the two of them disappear into the woods. So Mary Ellen's always running off trying to find John Curtis, who has disappeared again. So we're back trekking through the woods, as I recall we did when John Curtis was very little and wandered off. Of course, it wouldn't be a Waltons without the Baldwin sisters. Jim Bob and Yancy go by their house to put a proposition to them to fund these spare parts that they want for the garage. And so we get to see the Baldwin sisters, who do end up investing. And then when Jim Bob finds out that the parts that they got taken, he's in a tough situation because he borrowed money from the Baldwin sisters. A fun moment when Corabeth and Ike are both dressed in colonial restoration costumes, because where they're planning to go for Thanksgiving, I guess, is some sort of colonial restoration event. And so where Corabeth is in her element, Ike just feels stupid. But then Amy comes home in a surprise visit. So all of a sudden their trips going away are completely canceled. The family has a wonderful surprise when Daddy arrives back home to spend Thanksgiving with us, which means that now Erin doesn't want to go away, and Paul decides that he's going to just get away. He needs some space, which is really tough on Erin. But I do love seeing Jon surrounded by his children and his grandchildren. He has John Curtis and Ginny and Charlie, and Ralph was always so adorable working with the young children and the toddlers and the babies, and so just sweet, sweet stuff there. Another wonderful surprise is when Grandma comes back. She arrives back for Thanksgiving as well. So Elizabeth is just having this dream come true in that her family is gathering for Thanksgiving. And just sweet, sweet scenes. There's a point where Elizabeth has Ginny helping her prepare some things for Thanksgiving. And to me, this scene seems like there's just so much ad-libbing going on. I always remember that sweet moment when John Curtis says to Daddy, to his grandpa, "I got new pants," and Ralph and young John Curtis, the actor, had this little ad-lib interchange. And in this case, same thing. Elizabeth, I'm sure that a lot of this was ad-libbed, and she's just getting Ginny to be involved in what she's doing at the kitchen. And the little actress Angel was so precious and engaged in giving the director all this wonderful material with a toddler, which is very hard to do. Once Daddy is back home, he sort of makes his presence felt as he helps the various different members of the family sort out difficulties they're having, whether it's Jason or John Boy or Erin and Paul, that he really makes his presence felt. Ultimately, he helps Paul and Erin resolve their difficulties by finding Paul up at a cabin in the mountains and convincing Paul, well, if you want someplace to be alone with your wife and work through this, that how about this place? And basically gets Paul to work creating a space that will be comfortable for both of them and where they can really spend time working on themselves as a couple. So a lot of help there from Daddy. Thanksgiving wouldn't be Thanksgiving at the Waltons without a big family dinner, turkey and all the fixings and everyone in the community. So all of a sudden we have this enormous table, extended table, and I don't know how many people, about 20 something people around the table, and everybody crammed onto the seats. The Baldwin sisters are there, the Godseys are there, Yancy Tucker comes by. Yancy, they think that this turkey that we're going to be having was the one that Yancy gave to Jim Bob, and that then Jonesy was taking care of and fattening up. But in the long run, Jonesy couldn't do it, and he bought a turkey. So Isabella makes a cameo appearance there outside the window. Yancy is thrilled to have his pet turkey back, and everyone enjoys Thanksgiving and what it means to all of them and how grateful they all are to have family and each other. My message to you as we celebrate the holidays also, may you enjoy the love and the company of your own home and family. I recently did a little addition to the episode, The Shivery, and as I was doing that, I realized that something else I forgot to mention about A Day of Thanks was the wonderful little sweet moment at the end when, in looking through pictures of the family, John Curtis recognizes Grandpa as his imaginary friend. And what a wonderful, sweet way that was to have Grandpa included and to feel his presence in this very important family gathering. So I couldn't let this episode go without mentioning that both John Curtis and Ginny go, yeah, that was the imaginary friend that we saw. So we all felt Will's presence. And that's what I have for you for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Happy holidays. Thanks for watching.